Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All yajnas can be classified into two types fundamentally. One is the karma yajna and another is the jnana yajna. All yajnas can be broadly classified into these two fundamentals. One is the set of karma yajnas for inner purification, and that inner purification qualifies a person for jnana yajna, which is the nididhyasana, the manana, the nididhyasana portion and all that attains moksha, is the scheme laid out. Is the scheme for attaining the ideal number 2. For attaining the goal, which he said as ideal 1 or ideal 2, there are 2. One is a set of preparatory practices for karma yajna. All can be called as karma yajnas. And then comes the jnana yajna. Swadhyaya jnana yajna. He gives it a specific name for the jnana yajna. Swadhyaya jnana yajna. And then it will, and a combined pursuit of these will take you to the ideal number 2, which is the goal of liberation. Is the broad classification we have been discussing till now. And these broad classification of yajnas, as in karma yajnas and jnana yajnas, is basically derived from verse number 3 of chapter 3. Jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. This jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam itself is derived from chapter 2. Praprokta mayanaga. I have said already. Praprokta means, pura means earlier. Earlier means the earlier chapter. Earlier means the masters before. As I have said in chapter 2, you can take it like that. Or you can take it as it has been established over a long period of time. The tradition has established very clearly. What is it? For a person who is in the evolutionary stages towards spiritual evolution, needs to do he has to do a lot of karma yoga, and then mature into, and then come into jnana yoga. Now the question is, how do I know where do I fit in, sir? How do I know whether do I fit into the karma yoga portion or the jnana yoga portion? If you belong to the jnana yoga portion, you will know it. If there is a doubt, means you can safely assume that you belong to the karma yoga portion. How do I know where do I fit in? Do I fit into the Sankhya type or Yogi type? That is very easy. A person who belongs to the Sankhya type knows that he belongs to the Sankhya type. Remember this example that he gives. A person, there is in an organization, there is a job for 2 posts. One is the general manager and another is the officer. A person who is fit for general manager will never think of the officer post. The person who is fit for the officer post only will think, maybe I should apply for the general manager post also. Idhula renduthila edu vandalum I am okay. A person of the higher level knows that he is of the higher level. Therefore, he says, take up to the karma yoga a lot. one of the important things that we need to understand when we study a Shastra, when we study Shastra, Vedanta, or when we listen to the Guru, is we should take it in the context. The words of the Guru, the Shastras, are always spoken in a context. It is said in a context. Now, if you take it out of context and try and understand it as a general philosophy, you will find a lot of internal conflicts. You will find a lot of internal contradictions because you take it as a general subject. Now, Vedanta is not a general philosophical subject of an internal consistency. That is where Arjuna from the beginning is having this problem. Why are you saying Prajnavadamsya Bhashase? Why are you talking? Why are you talking so inconsistently? Why can't you say one thing? Why can't you say one thing clearly? The Shastras do not say that because you need to understand what they say in a context. When I say in a context means the same Vedanta, the same Vedas, the same Vedanta, the same knowledge will praise Karma Yoga at one stage and denounce it at another stage. The same Vedas, Vedanta will talk about the puja, the worship, the temple and all that at one stage, and then they themselves will denounce it at another stage. They will praise the Jnana Yogis at one stage and they will denounce the Jnana Yogis as useless at another stage. It means there is a lot of internal contradiction. There is no internal contradiction if you understand the context. For example, for Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is the context. So whatever you need to understand in Bhagavad Gita has to be understood in the context of Arjuna. Then it will make sense. Now, if you take the context of Kathopanishad, Nachiketas is the context. Now, to Nachiketas, Bhagavad Gita philosophy is very redundant. He will not talk about yajna karma. He will not talk about selfless activity. He will not talk about the 35 qualities of a bhakta, 20 qualities of a jnani, and all these kind of discussion. Diet plan as in 17th chapter will not come there. He will not talk about sattvic food, rajasic food and tamasic food. Eat moderately, don't overeat, don't oversleep. Now these kind of discussions and all will never come in. You will never find it in a Kathopanishad. You will never find it in a Chandogya or a Brihadaranyaka Upanishad because the context there is different. Because of the context being different there, because of the context itself is different there, what you need to understand, what is told would be relevant to that. That is why the philosophy always speaks in relation to the person who is listening. And it is not restricted only to that person, those types. Bhagavad Gita is always relevant to Arjuna types. Kathopanishad is always relevant to Nachiketas types. So at any given point of time, if I am of the Arjuna type, what I need to do? I need to get into the Bhagavad Gita portion. I should not try and do anything at the level of the jnana, which Arjuna himself wanted to do. There, which Arjuna himself wanted to do that, and Krishna has to literally almost telling him, don't take up sannyas. Almost telling him, don't do this jnana karma and all. Focus on the yajna karma as in the karma portions a lot. In this context, if you see, the advice that he gives is very meaningful. If you don't take it and never try to take, at least in Vedanta philosophy, you should not do that. At least in Vedanta philosophy, you should never try and take anything out of context and see it per se. Don't you ever do that in thinking. If you do that in thinking, you will neither understand the philosophy nor you will know how to use it also. For there is no per se discussion here. Like they will never say per se what is dharma. If you were to ask Krishna, what is dharma? Krishna will look at you and say, I can tell dharma for you, he will say. No, I am not asking dharma for me. I am asking dharma per se. Krishna says, that and all cannot be. That cannot be. That cannot be told. That cannot be discussed because it is always related to a context. It is always related to the context. One of the essential factors in thinking is understanding everything within the framework of that context, because it is meaningful only within the framework of that context. If you take the context, whatever is said would become redundant or meaningless or not applicable, whatever be the case. Not only that, we will have a greater difficulty of looking at the knowledge itself is inconsistent. What you said 5 years back is not what is said. What is said today? Ganesh was fighting with me the other day saying, you should have told all this 10 years back only. Why you reserved it for 10 years and you are saying now? I said, I am saying the same thing. What you don't realize is you are changing, that's all. The philosophy is the same. That is not changing. Now you as the receiver, when you change, it looks like as though we are saying something new. It's not new. It is the same. It is the same thing. When you discover it, it will be new to you. Always remember this. It is not per se new. It is new to you. Whenever you digest something, whenever you understand something, it is known to many already, but new to you. Are you able to follow the difference? It is new to you, but it is not new per se as in the latest model of Mercedes. It is not new in that sense. Like, for example, the ingredients that goes into the sambar is known to everybody. You try various combinations and all that, and one day you hit upon the perfect formula. It is new. It is new to you. Therefore, whatever the knowledge speaks, it will be new to you, but known to many already. Are you able to follow? Now, it is known to many already. Then I should be original in this. No, sir. There is no originality here. It is only understanding here. In philosophy, it is only understanding. There is no. If it is known to many already, then what is the difference between that knowing and this knowing? In knowing and all, there is no difference. It is the same. Otherwise, the ego comes here also and says, I should be unique. Vedanta comes and says, when it comes to the consciousness and all, there is no such thing called unique consciousness. Consciousness is the same. Brahman is the same. Understanding of it is the same. You may use the vocabulary according to your generation. You may use the vocabulary according to your generation, which may appear to be new. Why I am saying all this is, I said, using these 12 yajnas, I will also explain the methodology of studying the Shastras. Using these 12 yajnas, I said in the beginning, I will also teach how to study the Shastras. What are all the methods that we have to adopt while we sit and study the Shastras? Now, what are all the methodology that we have to adopt? We need to understand that it is whatever is spoken in a context, and it is applicable as long as the context remains the same. It is applicable only in relation to a context. Second is, there is no new thing that is going to come up. As your understanding keeps changing, it will appear new. It will appear new to you. Are you able to follow? It may appear new to you, but known to many already. I have learned how to make a sambar is new to me, but millions already know how to make it. There is no uniqueness there. But to me, it is unique. Now, what is the uniqueness here? This is where the knowledge, the understanding doesn't bring about any ego. Otherwise, it will say, I am very unique, I am very different, I am different from all other teachers. Vedanta comes and says, no. That possibility doesn't exist at all. It is new to you, but known to many already. Cycling, you learn it is new to you, but known to many already. You need not necessarily worry about how to make it unique and all. We don't have that problem in Vedanta. In all other subjects, you have to be something of your own. You have to bring something of your own. I don't know what all things that where the originality is required. Here, that possibility doesn't exist. So your understanding gets subtler and subtler and subtler. The words remain the same. Your understanding of the words become subtler and subtler and subtler. That is why the person goes through the same text again and again and again. We will not go through different texts. Why we will not go through different textbooks and ensure that we stick to a minimum set of books. The minimum set of books that we restrict ourselves is to ensure that the words remain the same. Your understanding only must change. Therefore, as you evolve, I will read some other book. No, you will still read the same. You will still read the same Bhagavad Gita. But from the Arjuna type, you would have moved on to, from the Arjuna type, you would have graduated to the Jnani type. So when you have graduated to the Jnani type, what would you do? Either you will sit with the second chapter, or you would sit with the 9th chapter, or you would sit with the 15th chapter. Now, this 9th chapter, 15th chapter and all will go overhead. 17th chapter and all looks very good. 17th chapter will look very good. 3rd chapter will look very good. 4th chapter will look very good. 12th and 10th and 11th will be very extremely motivating. And now, all these indicates which type you belong to. All these indicates which type you belong to. And there is no superiority or inferiority here. You necessarily have to go through this. You necessarily have to go through these stages. This is a brief structure with which we need to study the Shastra. When we study Vedanta, we always have to keep this in the, we should always remember this. Understand it like this. Shastra is a prescription according to the disease. You can't generally go and ask, tell me something good, no doctor, for my health. Tell me something good for my health. If you go and ask the doctor, what will the doctor do? He will sell you a few things, but that will not appeal to you, because you are asking for a specific prescription in a general way, which doesn't work, which is very poor thinking. You are asking for something specific in a generalized context. You are asking for something specific is a very poor thinking. This is how the study of the Shastras refine your thinking. The tarka, the mimam, the logic, the analysis, and all that, it refines your. This is how it refines your thinking. You understand the context. The prescriptions are taken in relation to the prescriptions are taken in relation to the context, and all understanding is restricted to that context, and there is no generalization at all. And there is no generalization at all. With this brief, because every class I am trying to say some aspect about how to study, how to analyze. Because what we need to know now is not so much about practicing yajna karma and all. How to study and analyze and understand itself is what we need to know now. So I am fully focusing on yajna karma from that perspective only, not to really guide a person into practicing yajna karma and all. That is different. What we are discussing here is how to study and analyze. Now, if the person says, "What is the need for all this, sir? Why do I need to know all these things? Why can't I just do what the Shastras ask me to do? Why can't I do that?" You cannot do that. Even for you to do it with Shraddha, even if you are willing to do, you should be able to do it with Shraddha. And for Shraddha to come, you need to know how to analyze, process it, and understand it. No. So even for you to practice effectively, you need Shraddha. And for Shraddha to come, you need to know how to analyze and understand it properly. What are the ways? Always remember, Shastras is spoken in a context. And they will be very clear in specifying the context. They will be very clear in specifying the context. Isavasya Upanishad says it very clearly. The context of mantra 1 is distinctly different from the context of mantra 2. The Mundaka Upanishad says it very clearly. The context in the first portion is entirely different to the context of the context that comes at the later stages. Therefore, this is the way in which we understand. As we are studying and doing all this, even though the context may be of Arjuna type or the Jnani type, the goal must be the same for both. In that, there is no compromise. There is no compromising the goal. Only the proportion differs. Only the proportion differs. At one stage, more of rice and less of vegetable. At another stage, more of vegetable and less of rice. The proportion only differs. But both are, you will never say only rice, nor you will say only vegetable. You need to have both, but what differs is the proportion. Are you able to follow? The proportion differs, that's all. So, but goal remains the goal is the same for both. It's not that the Karma Yogi works for a different goal and Jnana Yogi alone is working for moksha. Goal is the same. Only difference is the proportion of the practice. What is the proportion of the practice? If you are an extroverted type, there are certain practices. If you are an introverted type, there are certain practices. And how will an extroverted person act and how will an introverted person act? Two set of yajnas, depending on their actions. Depending on how they act, two set of yajnas is given. In the Jnana Yoga type, activity will be very less. In their case, the actions will be very, very less. Why the actions are very less is because of very less desires itself. When the person has very less desires, action by default becomes less. Please understand, the quantity of action comes less. The quality is very superior. The quantity reduces. The quality is extraordinarily superior. That's how you need to. So, in the case of an extroverted person, the quantity is high and he is trying to refine the quality. In case of an introverted person, he has worked on the quantity and reduced the quantity, and he is working on the subtlety at a very deeper layer. But nevertheless, the human beings is of two, the extroverted types and the introverted types. So the extroverted types also have receipt, reaction, response. The introverted types also have receipt, reaction, and response. Both happens to. It's not that the introverted type will not have any receipt of stimuli at all. The introverted types also will have receipt, reaction, response. The extroverted types also will have receipt, reaction, and response, and it will be distinct in both. One is not superior or inferior to the other. One is not superior or inferior to the other. This is how extroversion is. This is how introversion is. And Arjuna, you being the extroverted type, don't try to jump into the practices of an introvert. If you try to jump into the practice of introvert, what will happen? You would have never done your swadharma karma and your obligation in the extroverted activity properly. Neither would you be able to do the introverted activities properly. Both you would miss. You will end up missing both. Therefore, the advice is don't try to switch over. Don't try to switch the practice, because if you have to do some other practice, first mistake that you will do is the obligations that you have to do at your level you will not be doing rightly, properly. If you don't perform your obligations at your level properly, Nale, you have elongated your Punarjanma and all. You have created enough things for Punarjanma, because you have to, at some point of time, you have to come and work on it and exhaust it. No. So it means, what are you doing? You are creating Punarjanmas, means more and more Punarjanma. If you are creating for yourself, you are not on the path of spiritual evolution. The path on spiritual evolution means you don't create that further. There is no further creation of it. So what he does, what Arjuna has to do, he says, understand the receipt, reaction, response and all that according to the active type. According to the active type means the extroverted type, and channelize it to the goal. And if you are an introverted type, you channelize it and you do this. Are you okay till now? Sir, you spoke so elaborately, so eloquently and all that. If the context is important, why did Krishna even have to talk about the highest and all? Why can't he just talk about that which is relevant to Arjuna only Karma Yoga? Huh? If he were to speak that, he would get involved in activity, which is what happens in the Karmakanda portion of the Vedas. The Karmakanda portion of the Vedas speaks about only karma. See, Karmakanda portion, first thing that you need to understand is, Karmakanda portion doesn't mean ritualistic portion, active portion. If you talk about action all the time, what happens is the mind will believe action itself is the destination, and it would not go anywhere deep. It would not penetrate at all. Therefore, as he is talking about action, he is also opening up the door to the next step. This is the greatness of the master. As he teaches you at that level, he doesn't close the door. He leaves a small door open so that through that door you can go to the next level. How he keeps the door open? By explaining the limitations of karma, the consequences of karma, and explaining the beauty and consequences of knowledge. So he says, even though you have to do it, understand it it rightly and move. For Arjuna, we are not really interested in karma or jnanam here. We are not debating between the karma school and the jnana school here. We are not trying to establish the decision of which is superior, which is inferior. All that the Pandits will do, Arjuna. But my focus here is moksha. The purpose here is moksha, that's all. We are not trying to discuss which is inferior, which is superior, who should do what and all. We are not discussing. Therefore, what you understand? It will be spoken in a context, and also a door will be left open to pursue to the. A door will be left open to go to the next level. A door will be kept open to go to the next level. In all other systems, they closed other doors. The Bhakti tradition will come and say, all this doesn't work. They close the doors completely. The ritualistic portion, the karma portion, the active karma margis will come and say, they close all other doors. Similarly, in Jnanam also, there are people who come and close all other doors. Krishna, following the complete tradition, he talks about everything and exposes the limitation of. He talks about it, explains the value of it, at the same time exposes the limitation too. Which is what thinking objectivity is all about. From this, we understand, from this we derive what is objectivity and what is thinking. They don't say don't pursue wealth, they say pursue wealth, at the same time they will expose the limitation of it. They will say don't pursue family life, they will say pursue family life, at the same time they will expose the limitation of that family life. At another stage they will say take up sannyasa, and then at another stage they will say bahukrita veshaha, he will say. All that only a vesha you are putting. So everything they speak and they expose the limitation too. It means what? At any given point of time, irrespective of where you are, you should lose sight of the goal. It is not that only at a very high stage only you pitch up the goal of moksha and start working. From the beginning stage itself, you need to fix the goal of moksha and work. Otherwise, all other systems, they close the door. One system will come and say, as I said, you go to the Bhakti school, they will say, chanting alone is enough. Naham sami vaikunte na yogi hridayena vav madbhaktaha yatra gayanti tatra tishtami narada. God himself has said that. I am not in the heart of the yogis. I am not here in the sannyasis. I am not here. For he has said, madbhaktaha yatra gayanti. Wherever chanting and singing is happening, there only I go. In a Zoom class, weekly class, I don't go. For he has said it very, very clearly. Now they close all other doors. In Vedanta, what we do is we don't close any door. We say It is an essential tool. At the same time, the limitation of it is understood also. It means what? It means what? You would be objectively pursuing the spiritual path and you will not get entangled in any of these paths. You will be objectively pursuing the spiritual path and your progress will be continuous without any breaks, because you don't get fanatic to anything. You don't get attached to anything. You don't have the responsibility of proving something as though your path is superior, the other paths are. You don't have all these hang-ups which the others have. Are you able to follow? Again, when we say this, again, don't misunderstand to be a hodgepodge of everything. Huh? Again, don't misunderstand this to be a hodgepodge, taking the best of everything and putting it together. You take the best of everything and put it together, it will be the ugliest. It will be the ugliest caricature. Yeah. The best eyes, the best nose, the best ears, the best cheeks, the best lips, the best framework. Na? So again, when we say integration means, it is not the hodgepodge work also. Little bit of everything is taken together and put like a chivda. It's not that also. It is a very systematic, it's a very systematic evolutionary path, not a hodgepodge. Otherwise, some say they take everything and they talk. Hodgepodge. It's not that also. Therefore, this framework is very important to study and understand the Shastra, the Vedanta. Meaning, you don't get entangled in any path. You don't get entangled with any particular school of thinking. You are very clear about your goal and you keep pursuing the goal till you get there. This is how you need to study the. Now, this is general. This is not connected anyway to the 12 yajnas. What I said for the last 30-35 minutes is not anyway connected to the 12 yajnas. But I thought I should say this so that when we sit and study the Shastras, we know the broad framework with which we need to study. That is why any scripture you study, now you will know. Yar student you will ask. You will immediately ask who is the student. For it is spoken in the context of the student. Then you understand it rightly. Then you will understand it rightly. You will never have this. You will never have the difficulty of you will never have the difficulty of misunderstanding Shastra. If you don't understand it in the way that I'm saying, we will be committing the biggest fallacy in thinking. The biggest fallacy in thinking is some part I will take and some part I will leave. That is a very big fallacy in thinking. When you take up, you should take it. You should take everything as a whole and accept everything in it and go along with it. You can't pick and. That's where I have seen any number of people coming in and they choose something. Now, when it comes to Vedas, when it comes to Vedanta, you take the entire knowledge as the pramana. So, at one level, ritual is the pramana. At another level, only ritual becomes redundant. At one stage, bhakti, the idol worship and all is a pramana. At another stage only, it becomes redundant. So, you know both. Otherwise, if you don't understand it like this, we commit the biggest fallacy in studying the Shastras. The biggest fallacy in studying the Shastra is we always take part to be a whole. The fallacy in thinking is taking part to be a whole. What is the fallacy of taking part to be a whole? Blind men and the elephant. The poem Blind Men and the Elephants, elephants, elephant, singular. The blind men and the elephant the blind man and the elephant exposes this fallacy. If you carefully look at it, the way that you pursue the Shastra would be like this. One portion we take. We will not be able to take everything as pramanam, but in the context it is applicable. Then our thinking is very clear. Otherwise, one set will say rituals are all meaningless from the beginning. Another set will say knowledge alone summa pesane irupanga ivanga. These Vedanta people, they only talk and talk and talk, and no use out of this. No use out of this talk. At least get up and do something to the, at least go and do something to the villages, help them. Because all of us take a portion of the knowledge. If you take a portion of the knowledge to be true, you are making the fallacy. This is the fundamental fallacy in thinking. In science, we take every portion to be true. When we study science, we take all aspects of the knowledge to be true. We don't pick and choose. But when it comes to philosophy, we commit this fallacy. What is the fallacy? The fallacy of taking a part of the Shastra as true. Are you okay till now? Which part of the Shastra we take as true? That which agrees with my conditioning already. That which agrees to my conditioning already, I will take that portion as இதெல்லாம் சொல்லும்போது Vedanta is correct, Swamiji is correct. மிச்சதெல்லாம் பேசும்போது switch off. It means we are committing this fallacy. So what you need to understand in thinking is the entire knowledge is true. The complete knowledge is true, but what is said is applicable only in the context. So when they talk about rituals, as in Kamya Karma rituals, Kamya Karma ritual is Putra Kameshti. Dasharatha did a Kamya Karma ritual. Now, for that Kamya Karma is very relevant at one point of stage. For a person who is just evolving, you remember the category in Vedanta treatise? Mineral men, plant men, animal men, man. கடைசி பேர் சொல்லவே கூடாது. இப்போ God man ங்கிறது சொல்லவே கூடாது. இல்லையா? Better not to use the word God man nowadays. ஏன்னா அவங்கள மாதிரி fraud யாரும் இல்லைன்ற மாதிரி ஆயிப்போச்சு இப்போ. So now the knowledge talks to all the category of people. So when he is talking to the mineral man, to the mineral man, the goal is still moksha only. But what would help him? At least we will say, don't be a parasite. Do earn your own bread and butter at least. At least earn your own bread and butter. For that person who has turned into a plant man, something else will be told. Something else will be told. That is why this distinction is very necessary to understand. Quite a few people I have asked, why do you think that distinction is put? That mineral men too? Because some have just become a human being, some have been a human being for some time, some have been in a very advanced stage. Knowledge comprehensively talks to everybody. So what is right to a mineral man will not be applicable to a plant man. But the plant man should not call that what is applicable to a mineral man as irrelevant, redundant, wrong. He should not say that. That's where in the 7th chapter of the Gita, in the 9th chapter also he says it. Do not go and unsettle the minds of others, he says. Don't go on, just because you have learnt a few things, don't go around unsettling the minds of the people. little bit of this knowledge people gain, they will go and unsettle everybody. How they unsettle everybody? They go and take all that they do, it is taken away. Okay, all that they do is taken away. Now what will they do then? They will get more frustrated. So Kamya Karma, I'm just giving the example. So Kamya Karma is very applicable and relevant at one stage, will be spoken as Nishiddha Karma at another stage. What becomes an obligatory action at one stage becomes Nishiddha Karma at another stage. So Dasharatha did Putragameshti Yaga. Dasharatha did Putragameshti Yaga, which is a Kamya Karma. Now you read the Upanishads, the lists of, you read the Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, the lists of your Kamya Karmas are given. If you want a brilliant son with a lot of intellect, do this yajna. If you want not so brilliant, but ரொம்ப பாசமா இருந்தா போறோம் சார், ரொம்ப brilliant எல்லாம் வச்சு என்ன பிரயோஜனம்? பாசமா இருக்கிற சன் வேணும்னா do something else. No, பாசமா இருக்கிற சன் வேண்டாம், இன்டெலிஜென்ட் சன் எல்லாம் வேண்டாம், அழகா இருக்கணும் பாக்குறதுக்குன்னா do something. Now all these are Kamya Karma, which the same Vedas talk about. And the same Veda, next paragraph will ridicule that. Why? Because you have moved from mineral man to the plant man to animal man to man to last in English God man. God man. This system. So when you study knowledge, what you need to understand? Knowledge is talking to all these. Now where do I fit in? And I will accept that. I see where I am and I will take that relevant portion. But that doesn't mean the other portions I will call it as wrong or irrelevant. Today what we do, whatever portion we take seems to be right. Rest of the portions of the Vedas, Vedanta, we call as irrelevant. Sir, and the three states of consciousness, what is the Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga and all is very meaningful. Mind and intellect pati pesum, it seems very thing. But these three states of consciousness, theory of perception, what is the Drishya, what is the seer and the seen and the object of the object, the qualities in the seer, the qualities in the seen, what is the use of all that? So all these are theoretical portions of Vedanta, which I will, now I say, it is also pramanam, it is also true, but for my context, it appears to be irrelevant now. Here, the Catholicity comes in. The Catholicity in thinking comes in. When the Catholicity in thinking has come at the very subtler layer, which is religion, down the line, it will be easy to be very Catholic at all layers. You would be very accommodative at the worldly thinking level. You would be very accommodative at the emotional level. You will be very, very accommodative and very careful and sacrificial at the lower levels, because you are able to practice this at the subtlest layer. Therefore, Vedanta trains us how to become accommodative at the subtlest layer. When we have become accommodative at the subtlest layer, down the line everything becomes easy. Now again, what is the other way? We can work the other way also, which doesn't really help. When I say which doesn't really help means I can be very accommodative in emotions and all, but ideas wise I can be very rigid. In ideas and ideology I become very rigid. So the rigidity comes somewhere. Rigidity means what? Rigidity means a strong ego. Flexibility means not so strong an ego. Rigidity means what? A strong ego. Flexibility, adaptability means not so strong an ego. All these are the consequences of studying the Shastras in the way it ought to be studied. So don't commit this fallacy also. Don't take portions of it as true. In one portion of the Veda, they will glorify Indra. At another portion of the Veda, they will portray Indra as very greedy and jealousy. Now, when you see both, you will be utterly confused as to why is he portrayed at one stage as a god, at another stage he is jealousy and greedy. At one stage, practices are very subtle in nature. At another stage, they will talk about practices which are very gross in nature also. You have seen some of the movies, no? Where you see asuras doing tapas, and when they are doing tapas, in the 12 yajna formula they will not follow. What is the formula they follow? What do they offer as ahuti? Have you seen the movies? What do they offer as ahuti? They will cut their fingers and put. They will cut their hands and put. Yeah. They will stand on one leg till that body turns into a piece of wood. Now, the same thing talks about it. Look at that, how they say it so beautifully. But they will never talk about a rishi doing tapas like this. They will always say a rakshasa is doing tapas like this. It means what? A plant man, mineral man. A rakshasa is a mineral man. A rakshasa is a mineral man. So something would be told to him. So the fallacy that you should not commit while you are studying Shastra is not to take a portion of it as true. You take the entire knowledge as true. And then you come to the context. So now reverse length vandu I came to the last stage. Now for understanding purposes, come backwards. All that is said in the knowledge is true. It is true in relation to the context. Why? Because of the categories of human beings, as in mineral men, plant men, and animal men, God man, and all that. But for everybody, the destination is, he may be a mineral person, he may be a plant person, he may be a human person. For everybody, destination is the same. What is the destination? Akashat patitantoyam yada gacchati sagaram sarvadeva namaskaraha keshavam pradigacchati. Akashat, the destination is the same for everybody. Knowledge talks to everybody. Otherwise, we take portions of knowledge and ridicule the other. We take portions of knowledge and criticize the other. So the knowledge is more used as a tool for criticizing and finding fault with the other. Not understanding the context and accordingly talking. This is how we need to study the Shastra. Is it okay till now? Don't commit what all flaws we can commit in thinking is what I spoke about. We will move on to the last yajna, verse number 30. The last yajna. Apare, others. Every time he starts with others. Others means what? At whatever level you are in context. So each and every yajna has to be understood in that context. Others. Apare, beautiful is that word. Right through he keeps using this word. Apare niyataharaha pranan praneshu juhvati Sarve Pete Yajnavidah Yajnakshapita Kalmashaha. Yajnakshapita Kalmashaha. Others with regulated food offers pranas into pranas. Last yajna is over. The first statement of the verse, yajna is over. The second statement of the verse, all these are knowers of sacrifice, and by sacrifice they have destroyed their sins. So the second statement talks about the consequence of all the 12 yajnas. So verse, the first statement of the verse talks about the last yajna. What is it? Others with regulated food, aharaha, offers pranas into pranas. Receipt, reaction, response எல்லாம் பத்தி பேசினாரு. Pranamaya kosha பத்தி பேசினாரு. Now he has come to the lowest point, Annamaya also. Others offer food. Aharaha means, we'll see all that now, the food. Food in Vedantic literature means two. Not only that which is taken through the mouth, that which is taken through all the senses. Ahara means food for the senses. So others with regulated food. Regulated food means those who are careful about their intakes. Being careful about their intakes, what do they do? Offer pranas into pranas. Now prana he is using. That's where explanation needs to be given. So since the word prana is being used twice, it can't be the same meaning. Eating, you don't use the same word twice with the same meaning. If the same word is used twice, means the meaning is essentially different. Yeah, these are all the formulas for thinking. These are all the ways in which we derive them. We derive the methodology of thinking. Since he is using the same word consecutively, it won't mean the same. So the word first prana will have one meaning. The second prana will have another meaning. So when we give both these meanings, you have understood it rightly. Here, what formula we are following in thinking? The formula that we are following the thinking is, one is the shabdartha, the word meaning, another is the implied meaning. The meanings is always of two. One is the direct, another is implied. Sometimes you have to take the direct meaning, sometimes you have to take the implied meaning. So when you take the word ahara, we take the direct meaning and the implied meaning also. By this methodology of study, what happens? Your thinking becomes sharp. When your thinking becomes sharp, intellect is sharp. This is how Vedanta strengthens your intellect. This is how, by this methodology, is only Vedanta strengthens your intellect. So the meaning is what? That in all forms, what the body takes in. What the body takes in, you take breath through the nostrils, sight through the eyes, sound through ears, etc. All this is the ahara. Ahara means that which keeps it alive. That which is nutritious for us, that which feeds it. That which feeds it, and that which feeds has to be, that which feeds should not make it dull. See, when you eat food, you should not become dull, no. It should feed, and that feed also has to be nutritious. So it is implied. the proper regulation, what happens is the pranas are offered to pranas. That's the yajna here. What is the 12th yajna? Pranas offered to pranas. Meaning what? The first prana refers to the regulated internal activities and consequent absorption of energy. That is what it refers to, the first prana. What is the second prana? Second prana refers to expression of the acquired energy in the form of the external activity. Now you acquire an energy for what? You acquire an energy so that your external activity becomes more, you can call it more efficient, you can call it more dynamic, you can call it more productive, you can call it more meaningful, more beneficial, you can use any word. So the first prana refers to what you have gotten from the previous yajna. That becomes the ahuti here. So prana is the ahuti and prana is kindled. Literally speaking, what is he saying? Prana is the ahuti and prana is kindled. Now, what does it mean? The first prana, he doesn't, that's why he has given you an indication also. What is the indication? He has used the word aharaha in relation to the first prana. Apare niyataharaha pranan praneshu juhvati. The vitality is gained, that inner strength that is gained is meaningfully expresses as external activity. What is the ahuti here? The inner strength is the ahuti, which is what prana means. The first prana means the inner ahuti. Sir, dictionary எடுத்து பார்த்தாக்க பிராணாங்கிற வேர்டுக்கு ஆகுதின்ற மீனிங் வரவே வராது. If you take the dictionary, you will never find prana means ahuti. But in the context and in the flow, this is how you need to interpret. Sorry, yeah. Interpretation means it's not as though he is saying, if you go through the process of thinking rightly, you will understand it like this. So what is the ahuti here? Prana is the ahuti. And what is kindled? Prana is kindled. Prana becomes the ahuti and prana becomes the kindling factor. When a person does an activity, now I'm referring to the circle, the diagram, the yajna diagram. When activities like this happens, when this external activity of yours driven by the inner strength happens, what would be the consequence of it? What would be the consequence of it? The second line of the verse. The second line of the verse. What is the second line of the verse? All their sins are destroyed. How they do it? They are, beautiful Arjuna, they are knowers of sacrifice and did sacrifice. Both. They know I have to be charitable and they practice the charity also. Look at the word he uses. So, knowers of sacrifice means the knowledge part. By sacrifice means the doing part. So it's not that they were just contented knowing. What they knew, they did it. In fact, knowing is only for the purpose of doing. Knowing is meaningful only when it is going to be applied in doing. So, what is the consequence? All these means all the 12. all the 12 are knowers of sacrifice. Knowers of a sacrifice means they have the knowledge of sacrifice. First thing, they have the knowledge of sacrifice and by sacrifice. Yajna vidaha and yajna kshapita kalmashaha. Two things. Oh, charitable attitude la dana sir. I have enough attitude and I don't do any charity at all. That fellow will not take it. He understands charitable attitude and he performs. That's what is meant by knowers of sacrifice and by sacrifice. Are you able to follow? One person does it without knowing only. Another person says, knowing itself is enough. No. Why do I have to? Why do I have to do? He says, no. For the sins to go, you need to do both. What is the both? Both means what? You need to know it and you need to know it and you need to do it also. The responsibility of the Shastra is to convince you into the knowing part. Your effort comes in the doing part. The Shastra's role is to speak again and again and again through various logic and reason and story and all the methodology they adopt to convince about the knowing. But then it would be only theoretical knowledge. The last bit of the knowledge is still not yet complete. What is the last bit of the knowledge? You have not yet done it. So you gain all the knowledge, and when you do it also, it becomes a complete knowledge. A person has to have the knowledge of surgery and perform surgery, no? Knowledge of cooking and actual cooking. Both needs to be done. Then only his knowledge of cooking is complete. Now, my knowledge of cooking is incomplete knowledge because I only know the ingredients of it. My knowledge of cooking, I cannot call it as complete knowledge because I only know the ingredients of it. What is the ingredients? Yeah, I know. Sambar means tamarind. Tamarind goes into it. I know all that. But then my knowledge of cooking is complete only when I actually get into and do. So, he says, all these 12 yajnas, Arjuna, first thing is you understand them. What I can do, Arjuna, is to make you understand. But the doing part, you need to do. Exactly like this. Exactly like this. Take a simple example. Your child, there is a running race in the school and your child is also participating in the running race. Now, what would you do? What would you do? You will buy the shoe, you will do the training, you will do everything. On the running race day, you will go there, standing, cheering. But one thing the child has to do, what? What is that one thing the child has to do? It has to run. Sir, it will become parent race. It will not be. One father will be competing with another father. Now, what the Shastras do? Shastras cheerleader dancing it is not that. It does everything else and asks you to do the last thing. What is the last thing? Do it. Do it. When you start doing it, doubts will start coming. As long as you are not doing anything, no doubts will come. இப்போ சொல்லி கொடுக்கும்போது அப்படியே ரொம்ப கிளியரா இருக்கு சார் அப்படின்னா, I know that not a bit of it is practice. That's why doubts are not coming. It is, I will not say, wow, my explanation is so perfect that straight away they become wise. It will not happen like that. For you have done everything, and what the child has to do, the child has to run. Now what Krishna is saying is, I can teach you all this, Arjuna, but you also need to, from your side, what you need to do? Use the shoes, use the training, use my cheering up and all that. Little bit you have to do. What is a little bit you have to do? Do it. What is the little bit you have to do? Do it. You know, 99% I have done already. I am not asking you to do everything by yourself. All the support I have given. And the last thing that you need to do is do. Mind will not cooperate at this point. The mind will not cooperate at this point and say, I have understood. No, he is not understanding enough onto itself. That's the question. Vedanta comes and says, your understanding is improper. You don't have a complete understanding, because understanding becomes complete only when the doing also happens. Now, Krishna says this so beautifully here. Krishna says this so beautifully. What is it? All these are knowers of sacrifice, and by sacrifice have destroyed their sins. So it means what? They knew it and they did it. So whatever they did was backed by knowledge and understanding. So how does sin go? Whatsoever you do, if you do it with knowledge and understanding, the sins will go away. The corollary is, for knowledge to be called as complete, you should have done it also. Not practicing as in trial and error. Not practicing as in trial and error. You are doing it. When you are doing it, you may be a mineral man doing it. You may be a plant man doing it. You may be an animal person doing it. Depending on that, you will get depending on that, you will be taken to the next level of growth. This is how all these knowers of sacrifice, and by sacrifice have destroyed their sins. Sins means mental agitations, means vasanas, desires. Sins means mental agitations, means desires, means vasanas. Throughout the Shastra, they will never say eliminate your vasanas. They only say eliminate your sin. Sin. Yajna, Kshapita, Kalmashaha. Kalmasham. That is the sin. What is the sin? Sin not as in righteous or not according to some moral, ethical, man-made rules. Sin as in mental agitation. What is mental agitation? You want something and you are getting exactly the opposite of what you want is the agitation. Sin na enartham? Vasanas. Now what does that mean? To put it very simply, you want something and you are getting exactly the opposite of it. What is it that you want? Peace and tripti is what you want. And what are you getting? That's what sin is. That's what agitation is. Are you able to follow? You want something and you end up getting the opposite is what sin is. See, you get what you want, and if you are getting what you want, now where is the sin in that? Where is agitation in that? But then in world, it is only sin. It is only agitation, because you want something and you end up getting exactly the opposite. What is it that you want? You want purity. You want to be unlimited. You want absolute freedom. All this is what you want. And the way that you are pursuing the world, you get exactly the opposite of this, which is what classic Vedantic word for that is sin. The classic Vedantic word for that is sin. The implied meaning of sin is mental agitations. Mental agitations caused by vasanas. Therefore, Arjuna, these 12 yajnas gives you the knowledge portion of karma. Verse chapter number 3 spoke about the doing part. Now he spoke about the knowledge plus doing. First to do, then knowledge plus doing. When knowledge plus doing happens, what will be the consequence of that? Renunciation in action. Karma sannyasa, which is chapter 5. Beautiful chapter, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Don't say. When I came into chapter 3, I said beautiful chapter. Chapter 4, beautiful chapter. Because all that the Lord says has to be beautiful. No. Anything that Krishna says, all that the God says is beautiful. Now what to do? So from doing to knowledge plus doing equals Karma Sannyasa, and Karma Sannyasa to a person who is practicing renunciation in action is a sannyasi. What he will do? Meditation, realization. Chapter 6. Beautiful sequence he takes from chapter 3. From first he talks about the inevitability of doing. Nahi kaschit chanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit. The action is the insignia of life and the fundamentals. He started, goes step by step, culminates in chapter 6 in self-realization. Here what is he talking about? Doing plus knowledge. He says, at the mineral man level, it is doing first. Tamas lende, extreme tamas lende vella varnunna, first thing is start doing. And then prefix the doing with, here knowledge doesn't become the suffix, knowledge becomes the prefix. So prefix, knowledge first to doing, knowledge plus doing. Mathematically, in the logically speaking, the suffix side mulyo. Knowledge becomes the prefix here. With this knowledge of doing, all your sins gets washed away. With this, the 12 yajnas is complete. When I say 12 yajnas is complete, it is completed only in verse number 33. In the next session, what I am planning to do is do all the 3 verses together and conclude. We need not go verse by verse, because only in verse number 33 something very meaningful comes, which we will discuss, and then we will conclude this special course on yajna portion. We will conclude. Now there is one thing I missed. What is the something in chat has come? What is that? Ganesh, can you explain the second prana? The second prana is when the regulated internal activities and consequent right absorption of energy is offered as the ahuti. When all that is offered as ahuti, what is kindled? Outer activities. Outer activities is kindled. That's the kindling here. This is the ahuti and this is the kindle. The ahuti here is the first prana. The first prana as of previous verse. What is kindled here? The outer activities are kindled because, and how do we say outer activities are kindled? By default, if you have a positive energy, what will you be doing? A person of positive energy with so much of positivity and so much of goodness, will that fellow, will he sit in one corner keeping quiet? It will naturally flow into outer activity. Naturally flow into an outer activity. But the quality of that outer activity is so supreme because what is driving it? The regulated pranas and the consequent absorption of the regulated pranas. Regulated pranas and consequent absorption of regulated pranas means the inner vitality. That inner vitality is driving the action, driving the all activities. Are you okay? If the inner vitality is not driving all your activities, what is driving? Raga Dvesha is driving. If the inner vitality is not driving all the outer activities, what is driving? Raga Dvesha is driving. If Raga Dvesha drives, what will be the consequence? Agitations. Agitations. So, you start with the hope of concluding of no agitation, you end up getting more agitated. Cycle. If you follow the yajna cycle, what happens? You start with the right perception, go through the entire cycle and come out as something. What would be the quality of your outer activity? That is why he says, even if he stays quiet, in that silence also is so, that silence is also so meaningful. Even if that man is silent, like a Ramana Maharshi, even that silence has so much of, even if he asks a simple thing, even if he says a simple thing, I have a problem. Person goes and tells him, I have a problem. Ramana turns back and says, say that again. I didn't hear you properly. Say that again, he will say. And this person says, I have a problem. Immediately, Ramana says, the I in Ray, who is this I? What? See, that one sentence has such a, look at the outer activity can be an eloquent, inspiring, electrifying lecture like Ramatirtha, or can be a very meaningful, soul-stirring songs like Tyagaraja or others, or can be just one or two simple statements like Ramana. Are you able to follow? This is what outer activity is. From where does it, how does it become so meaningful? How does it become so powerful? Because of, they follow the cycle. In the third chapter, he said, Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati yaha. Whoever follows this cycle here, whoever follows this chakra, Arjuna, attains the Shreyas, attains the highest. He only said it is a wheel. Here he is explaining what he said as chakra there, he is explaining the wheel. Before explaining the wheel, what he did in chapter 3, he said do. Have to go to formula, it becomes easy. First, do. And then prefix the doing with knowledge. So knowledge plus doing. Jnana karma. When knowledge comes into karma, sannyasa automatically enters. When jnanam doesn't come into karma, attachment only comes. Only when jnanam comes into karma, detachment, sannyasa happens. When jnanam doesn't come, only attachment happens. So this jnanam, jnana karma, sannyasa. Fifth chapter, beautiful. Karma Sannyasa. Karma Sannyasa means he has matured to the type of, that's where he will discuss the distinction between yogi and sannyasi. Who is a yogi, who is a sannyasi? He will bring about the beautiful distinction of these two categories. இப்படிலாம் இருந்தா நீ யோகி, இப்படிலாம் இருந்தா நீ சன்னியாசி. பார்த்தாலே you, by looking at these definitions, you know where you fit in. And then from karma sannyasa to dhyana yoga, meditation and realization. And this yajna portion is a very vital link in the entire discussion of karma yoga, which he started from chapter 3, which is going to end in chapter 6. The vital link is this chakra. That is why we have some special, we need to spend some extra time on this to understand this chakra. Seriya? With this, the 12 yajnas is completed. There are a couple of more verses which we will take up in the next session, and whatever clarifications are there, we will take it up, and then we'll conclude the session. So hopefully one more session we would be able to complete the 12 yajna portion. Seriya?